The tools for achieving your wellness goals are right outside your door. You just have to know where to look, and I'm here to help. I'm Missy, an East Texas Christian herbalist, here to share conversations about local plants, where to find them and what to do with them, local vendors, the area's top sources for natural health products, and local practitioners, the professionals you can trust to get to the root of whatever you face. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or live more in step with the land, you're in the right place. Welcome. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about something that affects millions of people, most of them women, and yet so many walk around with symptoms for years, struggling and not feeling their best, and sometimes they're even saying something is wrong, but they don't really get any answers and no one connect the dots. We're talking about the thyroid and specifically hypothyroidism, when that little gland isn't making or it isn't delivering enough hormone. If you've ever been told your labs are normal and at the same time you're exhausted and freezing and foggy and gaining weight no matter what you do, this episode is for you. We're going to talk a little bit about what the thyroid actually does, why it's so much more complicated than just take a pill, and then we'll get into the good stuff, the herbs and the nutrients and lifestyle shifts that actually support this little gland. And quick note before we dive in, I'm not a doctor and nothing here replaces working with one, especially if you're already on thyroid medication or if you have an autoimmune condition. We're here to talk about what plants do and how they've traditionally been used. So let's dive in. Quick overview, what does the thyroid actually do? Let's start with the basics. Your thyroid is a small butterfly-shaped gland that sits right at the base of your throat, right about where a bow tie would sit if you were wearing one. And a metaphor that helped my brain, your thyroid is the heater, your brain is the thermostat. So think about how a heating system actually works in a house. The thermostat on the wall doesn't produce any heat on its own. It both senses the temperature and it allows you to adjust what you want, and it sends a signal. We need more heat in here or we're good, ease off. The heater is the appliance that actually does the work. The thermostat doesn't do it. The heater does the work, pumping the warmth out into every room. Your brain is in that thermostat role. It's constantly reading the situation. How much energy do you need? What's going on with your stress levels? What about your blood sugar and your hormones? And it senses all those things, and then it sends signals down to the thyroid about what to do next. The thyroid itself is the heater, the one actually producing the heat, which in this case, heat is thyroid hormone. It's the stuff that sets the pace for your metabolism, your body temperature, your heart rate, how fast your hair and your nails grow, even how sharp your thinking is. And that's a lot, right? A house can be cold for several different reasons. So maybe the heater itself is broken and it can't produce heat even when it's told to. Or maybe the heater is working just fine, but the thermostat is miscalibrated, or the wires are damaged, or it's just not sending a strong enough signal. Either way, the house ends up cold. Or there could be issues with distribution. Something is off with your ductwork or stopped up in your ductwork, the way the heat gets into each individual room. And the fix is different depending on which part is actually failing. That's exactly what happens with hypothyroidism, low thyroid function. When thyroid hormone runs low, whether it's the thermostat signal that's off or the heater itself struggling to keep up, it's like someone quietly turned the heat down on every room in the house all at once. Digestion slows, heart rate slows, metabolism slows. Even your mood and memory can feel the chill. It's not one system malfunctioning in isolation. It's the whole house running a little colder and a little dimmer. That's why hypothyroidism symptoms can feel so scattered and confusing. They're not random. They're all downstream of the same thermostat and heater system, but they can show up in different rooms of the house at different times. Just to quickly go over symptoms of low thyroid. What does that dimmer switch look like in real life? Here are some of the most common signs of hypothyroidism. Fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. Brain fog, poor memory, trouble concentrating. A low mood, depression, anxiety. Weight gain or difficulty losing weight. Feeling cold all the time, like maybe you have cold hands and feet and just a low overall body temperature. Dry skin and dry brittle hair. hair loss itself, especially. I look at the outer third of the eyebrows. This is one of those telltale signs I look for in consultations. I like consultations either face-to-face or over video, not over just a regular telephone call, even with follow-ups, because I like to see the face. I like to look for signs of overall health, and that outer third of the eyebrows is one thing that I'm always looking at. Brittle nails can be a symptom of hypothyroidism, constipation and sluggish digestion, fluid retention and facial swelling, low libido, hoarseness or voice changes, headaches and muscle aches, a slow heart rate, high cholesterol, a goiter, visible swelling at the base of the neck. A statistic I read, 8 out of 10 people diagnosed with hypothyroidism are women, and that's not a coincidence. It has a lot to do with how thyroid hormone interacts with estrogen, progesterone, and stress hormones, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. A quick self-check you can do at home. Locate your thyroid right at the base of your throat. Tilt your head back slightly and swallow, and watch for any visible swelling. You might need an extra mirror, or you can also use your phone and tilt your head back and video it, and then look at it later so that you don't have to keep your eyes on it when you're actually swallowing. Another thing you can do is track your basal body temperature. If it consistently runs below 97.4, that could be a sign of a sluggish thyroid. Just also remember that during ovulation or at the end of your menstrual cycle, temperature naturally shifts. So if you still have a cycle, that's not the best time to measure. Let's look for a second at labs in hypothyroidism, TSH, T4, T3, and a few others. Okay, I'm not gonna blah 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 at you. I promise. I want to just demystify the alphabet soup, because that's where a lot of people get lost and where doctors often stop looking too soon. Stay with me. We're just gonna be here a minute, and I'm gonna make it really understandable. Let's go back to our heater and thermostat analogy. Here's how that plays out with actual hormones. TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. When you see that number, I think about the brain. It's basically your brain's way of turning up the heat. I know it's 1,000,000 degrees in Texas right now, and heat is the farthest thing from your mind, but pretend it's January and icy outside, and you're getting chilly, and you probably go over to the thermostat and you bump it up a few degrees. You increase the signal, bump up the number. In the body, when your brain senses you need more hormone, it sends out more TSH. That's the same thing as bumping up the thermostat, which travels down to the thyroid and says, produce more. So here's the part that trips a lot of people up. High TSH means your thyroid is running low. It's like when you turn up the degrees, you increase the number on the thermostat. Your brain is shouting louder. It's trying to get a sluggish heater to work harder. Low TSH usually means the opposite. Your brain says, we're good. It doesn't need to ask for more because there's already plenty of thyroid hormone around. So low TSH is good, high is bad. Now, what does the thyroid actually make when it gets that message? So TSH says make thyroid hormone, and when the thyroid receives that signal, it makes mostly T4 and a much, much smaller amount of T3, which is the active form. Here's an easy way to think about it. T4 is like the raw ingredient, and T3 is the finished product that actually gets used. T4 has to be converted into T3 before it can get into a cell and do its job. And that conversion of the 4 to the 3 mostly happens in your liver, with another chunk happening in your gut, thanks to healthy gut bacteria. And this matters a lot. We're going to come back to it because it means your liver and your gut health directly affect how much usable hormone you actually end up with, even if your thyroid itself is producing plenty of T4. A couple of other players worth knowing by name, I won't dwell on them. Reverse T3 is like a decoy. It can sit on the same receptors that T3 would use without actually doing the job, like that coworker who takes up space but doesn't do any work. So sometimes you can have enough T3 on paper, but a lot of it's being crowded out by this decoy version, the reverse T3. You might also see labs for free versus total T4 and T3. I know, who names this stuff, and why didn't they make it something else? I don't know. Total is all the hormone in your bloodstream. Free is the portion that's actually available for your cells to use right now. Free is usually the more useful number. So already you can see it's not about one gland, one hormone, one problem. It's the whole system. It's your brain and your thyroid and your liver and your gut, and everything has to work together in a certain sequence in the right way, and a breakdown can happen at any point along the way. So that's complicated, right? And that's why it's not just about taking a pill. This is the heart of the episode, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. Levothyroxine, the most commonly prescribed thyroid medication, is synthetic T4, what your thyroid makes, but it has to be converted. And for a lot of people, it helps. But here's the problem. If your body isn't converting T4 into usable T3, or your cells can't respond to the T3 that's there, then just getting more T4 in the system won't necessarily fix the underlying issue. It's like if you grow things, if you have plants and they're not getting enough sunlight to convert all of the other things into plant food, then putting more water isn't going to help, because that's not what they need. They need more sunlight. So where can things actually go wrong? Quite a few places. In the brain, between the hypothalamus and the pituitary, or between the pituitary and the thyroid. Like if your thyroid isn't sending signals to your actual furnace, there's no heat. Another place things can go wrong is when during T4 to T3 conversion. Most common reasons here are nutrient deficiencies or liver sluggishness. And in that case, I say support the liver, support the digestive system. There might be transport problems. That's kind of related to the ductwork in your heating system. Hormone isn't getting dropped off where it needs to go. Inflammation can also interfere, especially gut inflammation, and a lot of times this is triggered by food sensitivities or chronic stress. Over time, that reduces the number of thyroid hormone receptors. So what thyroid hormone you do have, it doesn't have as many places to land. Toxicity is a factor. Heavy metals like mercury and lead, pesticide exposure, just junk in the environment puts a strain on the liver. And remember, the liver's job is thyroid hormone conversion. And if it's busy filtering out all that extra junk that's come in from all over the place, it has less resources and less energy and less time available to convert T4 to T3. Blood sugar imbalances are a big deal. Insulin surges throw the thyroid off, so when blood sugar goes too high, and low blood sugar triggers cortisol release. It stresses your body out, and that also suppresses thyroid function. Chronic infections, and it can be a problem. Undereating is an issue. Your body views calorie restriction as a famine signal. It says, hey, conserve energy, and that means cutting thyroid output. There are also certain medications like beta blockers or birth control pills or estrogen replacement treatments, lithium and chemotherapy. All of those are things that can make an impact on thyroid hormone production. Hormone imbalances, low progesterone, high estrogen, or high testosterone can all slow thyroid signaling. Even when the thyroid gland itself isn't working just fine, if those other things are off, they can create problems. High testosterone in particular, just because I don't know why, but I've seen a lot of this lately. It lowers binding globulin, so there's more free hormone circulating, but the brain sees all that free hormone and it thinks, there's too much, so it downregulates the receptors. Kind of like insulin resistance, but for thyroid hormone. The hormone is there, but the cells stop taking it up. The cells stop listening to the signal. I'm going to zero in just for a minute on the cell danger response. It's a useful framework to me for understanding chronic hypothyroidism. When your body senses a threat like toxins or trauma or extreme stress or illness, your cells go into energy conservation mode. Like what you might do, let's say the power goes out and you have a generator and you've been running it for a while, but the power's been out for a while and you don't know how much longer you're going to have to wait, and you only have so much gas. You go in, you might like unplug all the appliances you don't need and ration the resources and not open the fridge unless you had to. When the body feels like there's a threat, a stressor, it reduces output and conversion and uptake, and it can even release inflammatory agents that damage thyroid tissue over time. Short term, this is protective, but long term, it can leave you with an underperforming thyroid. This also connects directly to your adrenal glands. Stress hormones and thyroid hormones are both like gas pedals, and your body doesn't want to floor two gas pedals at once because, if you double up on what you need, you run out of gas faster. So elevated stress hormones directly suppress thyroid function. Then as thyroid function drops, liver detoxification and metabolism slow down. And as liver function slows, gut function declines, and inflammation in the gut sends fight or flight signals back to the adrenals, and then you get more stress hormones pumped out, and it's just like this loop that feeds itself in both directions. So thinking about how 20% of your T3 conversion happens in the gut, it makes sense that gut health isn't a side note, it's central. I know that was a lot, but I wanted to give you a peek into how the problem can have multiple causes so that it makes sense why TSH on your lab work doesn't give the whole picture and why the fix isn't always just give thyroid hormone. But it's also worth saying that sometimes that is the fix. There's no plant that's a direct substitute for thyroid hormone. There's just not. People come to me and they say, I want to get off my thyroid hormone. What can I take? And if the problem is stress, there's an herb for that. If the liver needs support, there's an herb for that. If it's the gut, I love talking herbs for that. But if your thyroid absolutely cannot produce the hormone you need, thankfully, we live in a world where that's available both as synthetic thyroid hormone and desiccated thyroid hormone from cows or pigs. A quick side note on the throat connection. Here's something that doesn't usually make it into a lab report or a podcast about thyroid health, but I think it's worth sitting with. The thyroid sits right at your throat, right where your voice lives. There's a long-standing idea across a lot of mind, body, and energetic traditions that thyroid issues can be tied to self-expression, to not feeling safe or able to speak your truth or your needs or your feelings, chronic self-silencing, swallowing your words, holding back what you really want to say. Some practitioners believe that this can show up as physical tension and blockage right at the throat, right where the thyroid sits. And I'm not saying that this replaces the physiology we just talked through. It doesn't. But if you've been doing everything right on the physical side and still feel stuck, it might be worth asking yourself, is there somewhere in my life that I'm not speaking up? Sometimes healing means asking something of the emotional body, not just the physical one. And if a physical discomfort becomes a motivation for examining something that's been plaguing you for a lifetime, that's a good thing. Okay, let's switch over to Hashimoto's. Data shows roughly 90% of hypothyroidism cases are actually Hashimoto's disease. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where your body's own antibodies attack thyroid tissue, which gradually reduces its ability to make hormone. These antibodies can also not play nice with the adrenal glands and the pancreas and the acid-producing cells in your stomach, which is part of why Hashimoto's so often coincides with digestive symptoms and why supporting those parts of the body alongside can be really good. Since the thyroid also plays a role in keeping the gut lining's tight junctions intact, you can end up in a loop. Thyroid dysfunction contributes to gut permeability, and gut permeability drives more immune reactivity back toward the thyroid. And it's strongly tied to food intolerances, especially gluten and dairy and gut dysbiosis. If Hashimoto's is on the table, it's worth asking your practitioner to check TPO antibodies and TG antibodies, and it may be worth investigating SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Other topics to research are MTHFR gene variants and life stressors as contributing factors, in addition to not just looking at the thyroid gland in isolation. Finally, herbs. Herbs to support healthy thyroid function. All right, let's get into the herbal toolkit. And I do want to say work with an herbalist or a practitioner as you're adding these especially if you're on thyroid medication, since some herbs can change how much medication you need. The first one that always comes to mind for me is ashwagandha. It's an adaptogen that mildly boosts both T3 and T4. And it's especially helpful if insomnia is part of your picture. A lovely way to take it is as a warm decoction in milk or coconut milk. And you can add a touch of honey, just, in a pot, a cup full with a spoonful of ashwagandha in there. Simmer it for 5-10 minutes and then strain out the herb. Put a little cinnamon on top. Simmer gently, never boiled. It's just nice. Bladderwrack is another herb. It's a seaweed, and it has a building block that your body uses to actually construct T4. So if hormone levels are low and TSH is only modestly elevated, powdered bladderwrack up to about 5 grams a day, taken an hour before a meal, has shown promise. Some practitioners have even used it to help patients reduce or transition off of T4 medication over time and under supervision. Google, not like Google, but this one's spelled Guggul. It's a resin related to myrrh, like frankincense and myrrh with the 3 wise men. Google was traditionally used for cholesterol support, but it's also been shown to help the thyroid to use iodine more effectively and to stimulate hormone production. It's good paired with that seaweed so that the raw materials are available too. Seaweed in general is just good. Remember I said we want to support the liver? Milk thistle, dandelion root, and schizandra are 3 herbs there. Since most T4 to T3 conversion happens there, a congested liver can directly bottleneck thyroid hormone conversion. These herbs support healthy liver function and healthy bile flow. 2 more. Triphala or psyllium husk can help there too because they help the body eliminate more. Go to the bathroom more. Holy basil, Tulsi. Research in animal models found it decreased T4 without significantly affecting T3 or the T3 to T4 ratio, which is worth knowing if you're already running low. Reishi and eleuthero are particularly relevant for Hashimoto's since they're immune modulating botanicals. The goal isn't to boost the immune system blindly, but to help recalibrate an immune response that's mistakenly attacking thyroid tissue. Then getting back to that gut connection, Sweet Annie, also known as sweet wormwood, was traditionally used to help calm chronic thyroiditis. Astragalus is an immune modulating herb that's often included in thyroid support formulas. Black walnut is particularly noted for supporting leaky gut, which goes back to that gut-thyroid connection and those tight junctions. One well-known herbalist formula worth mentioning is Aviva Rom's tincture blend for hypothyroidism. So if you use tinctures, her formula combines coleus, ashwagandha, bladderwrack, licorice, guggul, reishi, and ginger taken twice daily. And that's an example of how the herbs might be combined rather than used one at a time, supporting the liver and the immune system and hormone production all at once. Let's talk for just a second about nutrients and supplements. What else might help? The thyroid is a nutrient-hungry gland, and here's what tends to matter most. Selenium is essential for converting T4 to T3. So 3 to 5 Brazil nuts a day, those are yummy. 3 to 5 a day or 200 micrograms as a supplement. 100 if you're already eating Brazil nuts regularly, is a common recommendation. More isn't better here. Excess selenium can backfire, so stick to food-like doses. Iodine is essential for making T4 and T3 in the first place. Seaweed and iodized salt are reliable sources, and it's something worth thinking about, especially for people on a vegan diet, because iodine is concentrated in eggs and dairy. Zinc works alongside selenium to support T4 to T3 conversion, and it also improves cellular sensitivity to thyroid hormone. Iron is necessary for hormone production and for conversion. Tyrosine, the amino acid precursor to thyroid hormone, is actually built from tyrosine, so it's especially important if you're eating a lower protein diet. Vitamin D, many practitioners recommend a higher target range for people with Hashimoto specifically, since the body may not utilize it as efficiently in autoimmune thyroid conditions. B vitamins, particularly B2, B3, and B6, they support the enzymatic pathways involved in hormone production. Vitamin A improves cellular sensitivity to thyroid hormone. Vitamins C and E support the antioxidant load created during normal thyroid hormone synthesis. Probiotics, particularly soil-based organisms like Bacillus subtilis, and digestive enzymes, those support gut health, which, remember, handles about 20% of your T3 conversion. Omega-3s also provide general anti-inflammatory support. Like with everything else, here lifestyle matters, and nobody wants to hear it because they're all the things you have to do every darn day, and they aren't excited, and they don't get immediate results. And I'm just curious, why are humans in general so resistant to doing the simple things? I was talking to somebody the other day about really chewing your food, and we both just laughed because we both know that we're supposed to do that. I keep meaning to do better about it. I really do. I'm like, I am going to savor my meal, and I'm going to chew my food so well. And about 3 bites in, I just forget. There are so many things that are good for us that are simple but not easy. But these are things that will support healthy thyroid function, and if you leave too many of them out too often, it's just so much harder to improve. Prioritize sleep. Aim for 8 or more hours. Sleep is where your HPA axis, the stress response system, resets. And chronic sleep debt keeps cortisol elevated, which directly suppresses thyroid function. Movement. Move your body. Exercise stimulates thyroid function and improves cellular sensitivity to the hormone that you already have. Reduce exposure to endocrine disruptors. This includes things like triclosan, an antibacterial compound that's found in soaps and dish detergents and sponges and personal care products. If it says antibacterial on the front label, look to see if it's something that you've been exposing yourself to without knowing it, and switch to an alternative. Just get it out of there. Address stress at its root, whether that's a relationship or a job or a financial pressure or something less tangible. Remember that stress hormones and thyroid hormones are both gas pedals. If your body hits one too hard, it's going to pump the brakes on the other. Reduce toxin exposure where you can. Heavy metals and pesticides and household chemicals, they all add to your liver's workload, and the liver's doing double duty as your hormone conversion site. It needs all the help it can get. Natural thyroid support diet tips. Food to lean into. Antioxidant-rich foods. So think deeply colored berries and purple produce. Normal thyroid hormone production actually creates oxidative byproducts. So antioxidants help offset that load. Blackstrap molasses helps support iron levels and thyroid function. Black beans are supportive of the adrenal-thyroid connection. Carotenoid-rich foods like yams and sweet potatoes. And then bone broth, it nourishes your gut and your bones where immune cells are produced, and probably your soul. It's just good to get in. Foods to reduce or remove are gluten and dairy, often worth eliminating for a solid 3-month trial, especially with Hashimoto's. Pesticide-laden produce, nitrates in cured meats, alcohol, raw brassica vegetables in large daily amounts. That's broccoli and cabbage and kale. Raw. When it's raw, they contain compounds that can interfere with iodine uptake. So cooking them removes those compounds and makes it okay. But also not eating the raw vegetables daily reduces that effect. Soy can impair T4 to T3 conversion in some people and can interfere with absorption of synthetic thyroid medication. Refined carbohydrates and added sugar should be kept to a minimum, since blood sugar swings directly disrupt thyroid signaling. And then processed foods, GMOs, foods raised with added hormones and antibiotics and pesticides or herbicides wherever possible, whether your thyroid's in great shape or not. I mean, that's common sense. In closing, so here's what I want you to walk away with. Your thyroid isn't a single dial with a single fix. It's a whole conversation between your brain and your gland and your gut and your liver and your stress hormones and your sex hormones. And that's actually good news, because it means that there are a lot of entry points for support beyond take this pill and hope for the best. So if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. If your labs are normal but you don't feel normal, you're not imagining it and you're not out of options. Ask for a full panel, TSH, free T4, free T3, and thyroid antibodies at minimum. Look at your gut, your stress load, your nutrient status, and give your body the raw materials, especially selenium and zinc and iodine and tyrosine, that it needs to do this work. And if you're looking for a Christian clinical herbalist who will listen to what you have going on and help you figure out which plants might be most supportive in your situation, you can find out more about me at gracerootedherbalist.com. Thank you so much for listening. If this episode helped connect some dots for you, share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.